Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about deadlifting versus squatting. What are the differences and how is the optimal way to perform each one? And if you have problem with your balance and with your stability or mobility, this video should help you how to perform a deadlift and a squat. Um, First things first, the deadlift is a movement that you lift the weight off the ground. The reason it's called a deadlift is because the weight is dead on the floor, you lift it up. The squat can be performed many different ways. You can hold the weight here, overhead, on this down, behind the neck, many different weights and shapes. But the main difference is with the squatting. When you go down, your knee can come forward, and with the deadlift, when you're lifting the weight off the floor, your knee or your tibia, your shin stays vertical most of the time. So especially if you're doing a barbell deadlift or kettlebell deadlift, it's not optimal for your knee to come forward because then it turns into more of a squat. There's debate about this, but that's how I differentiate it. It's more simple to explain to people as a beginner. So the other thing about let's start with the deadlift actually. So the other thing about the deadlift is that you want to make sure you have a solid floor contact. So that's why I prefer to take the shoes off to have more of a grasp of the floor. You want to have a good point of contact with the floor to establish good balance and good stability. You want the whole foot to be on the floor, especially the toes and the heels. You want to be as close as possible to your center. So the common mistake that I've seen is that people are too far back, and when you lift the weight up, it causes a little bit of back pain. So that's the number one issue. Try not to get is your back pain. So you try to kind of be right in the center, and you have a wide stance. Your whole foot is on the floor, and for the deadlift, you have to perform what is called a hip hinge. So you're hinging forward. So you don't want to round it back because that's the common mistake. What people do, you lift it with a rounded back. You want to keep the torso up, shoulders back, scapula retracted, and you want to hinge with the hips while you're keeping the knee back and shins straight. So you don't want the knee to come forward. So sometimes if you don't have a good ankle mobility, you compensate by bringing the knees forward. That's also a problem. So if your hinge is okay, you can just hinge down, lift the weight up. If that is not comfortable for you and you feel like your knees are coming forward, sometimes it helps to actually have a heavier weight. So when you go down, you can anchor yourself with the weight. So you shift your weight back, you hold this tight, push your knees back and lift it all the way. The other thing that you can do as a beginner, if you feel like you don't feel comfortable with the weight, is to add a little bit of elevation on the deadlift. So you basically put the weight under a little blocks. You elevate the weight. That should be much easier. So you still bend the knees, but the position of the knee is back. So you hinge down, hinge from the hip, keep the shoulders back. You don't want to have a rounded shoulder. Keep your shoulders back, your chest is pointing forward, and you lift the weight up. The easiest way to lift the weight up without using your back. So that's a deadlift. So this is the easiest way of doing a deadlift. It doesn't really make sense to go super light with this. So you want to have at least, 30, 40 pound, something like that. If you go lighter than that, it's just, you don't get anything out of it. So let's move to the squat. So as a beginner, you should be able to perform the squat without falling over. So the first thing we test is the ankle mobility. If you feel like you're doing a squat and you're not able to go down because your back is rounding or you feel like you're gonna fall forward, you can't keep your balance, most likely you have mobility or stability issues on your hip or ankle. And I can say most of the time is the ankle. So one of the good tests is to try to see how flexible is your ankle. A good test is to kind of lunge down in front of a wall, and then you try to kind of move your knee forward to the wall. So if you have a wall here, your toes is touching the wall, and you're trying to go forward. The more you can go forward, or hit the wall, or even if you're further from the wall, you go closer to the wall. While the heel is on the floor, the better your ankle mobility is. So if you're not able to do that, the chances are your ankle is limited. So you just have to kind of practice that. It's a process that you have to get engaged, and it takes time, but it's possible to get there. But one of the ways to kind of help you get there is to add a little bit of elevation under your heels, so that helps a lot. So for example, what I do is I grab a couple of these small weights and I put it under my heel, and that helps me with the depth of the squat. So this is one thing that you can do to help you with the squat. You put your heels on there and you can squat down. It doesn't matter if you have a weight on your back, you're holding a dumbbell, you're holding a kettlebell, however you want to perform the squat. Having elevated heel helps with the depth of the squat while you're maintaining your torso. With the squat, you're not worried about the knee coming over. Your knee can well pass over your toes. That's not an issue because it's a squat. The other thing that you can spend more money on, if you're trying to be really kind of like spending more time and money on this, is to have a little bit of elevation, a wedge that is specific for squat. That should help you squat as deep as you can.